Hello all. Hi. So I'm here to present RogerVoice. We're going to talk about augmented telephony. So basically, the first thing I want you guys to know is what we do. We're not as well known as other brands, so might as well start as an introduction. What do we do? Just as a prelude, I was asked to step in for Stuart Russell. It's pretty big shoes to fill in. The only thing we have in common is we both went to Berkeley. But besides that, that guy's on a level that's way beyond what we do. But I hope to entertain you guys tonight. So basically what we do is, as a general rule, we love to try to change society. Everybody wants to have this impact in society. There's something very fulfilling about doing that. But it's really very, very difficult. It's very difficult because if you're a startup and you want to do something disruptive and change how society behaves, you're in for the long run. You're in for a very long run. And so you need to be like a very large company to do that. So a startup trying to do this is very, very challenging. But we hope to do that. Oh, sorry, I had a translation on. Great. And so, So today I just want to talk about RogerVoice, what we do, and I want to talk about telecommunications in general, and how we're going to solve some challenges. So basically, there's a few notions that I want to dispel. Accessibility. People like me were deaf. There are many people who have some level of disability in their lives. Most of it is seen as something that's not very comfortable talking about. You know, it's kind of something kind of hide away. A lot of stuff you see out there, they feel kind of like paramedical. They're not really great. And I'm thinking, wait, is it too expensive? Is that one of the problems? Well, that's another thing I want to dispel. People think a lot of solutions out there are just too expensive. They're complex. They're just a niche market. There's just not enough volume out there. And that is something I totally want to dispel. There's a lot of solutions out there that can be harnessed for the greater good and can benefit a niche amount of people. So RogerVoice, what are we? We're a telecom company, and we're here to use artificial intelligence to improve accessibility. And we do that by focusing on our users, not on the product itself or the technology. So RogerVoice is a telecom company. We're a full-stack telecom company. We have our own switch. We have our own architecture. We have our own VoIP endings. We do incoming and outgoing calls. We handle caller ID, and so on and so forth. You can purchase outgoing minutes and incoming minutes. So we're really a full-stack telecom company, and we have an app to back it up. It's a really sexy app. It's very easy to use. You can download it today on the App Store, Play Store. And you can make calls with it. And what happens with these calls? Well, when you make calls with it, basically what happens is, let's say I'm calling my mother, which actually happened today. I just called her. It was her birthday today. So I called her, and she lives in LA. And I said, happy birthday. When she replies, oh, thank you, honey, basically it transcribes what she says on my phone in real time. And it looks like this, right there on the first image. The text appears on the screen in real time. And I respond using my voice, and she hears me. I can also type back my response, and it uses voice synthesis. So she hears what I type in real time. And there's many innovations like this that we integrate into the app. So once again, we're a telecom company, and we've cracked the telecom industry a little bit in a modest way, just to add in artificial intelligence. And so there's a lot of things in telecom that are complicated, very, very complicated. There's the legacy networks out there that are not easy to solve, to work with. So basically, we're adding services on top, and we're making it easy to integrate new modules. And we're able to integrate a lot of modules as we go on and develop our app. And sort of kind of changing the way people use telecommunication today. So what is the problem? Why are we doing this? It's a lot of hard work. And we're doing this because there's people like me who are deaf. We have a lot of difficulty communicating using the telephone. the telephone actually represents a significant barrier to us in terms of just your average daily inclusion. People use an average 5 phone calls a day. That's just something that we don't realize, we take for granted actually. Calling your employer, calling your friend, calling the restaurant, asking for direction, and so on and so forth. It's just so easy, you don't even think about it. You think, oh, today nobody uses the telephone, everybody uses SMS and FaceTime, so on and so forth. But that's not true. So what we do actually is, people who are deaf and hard of hearing, like me, we actually take our app and we use, make a phone call through the app. And this solicits our server. Our server requests us the service that we need. It can be machine-enabled transcription, or it could be human-assisted transcription, or it could be sign language interpreters. So we're actually really trying to make humans more performant by helping them. Because there's a lot of demand for these services, and the skills out there are limited and very expensive. And we're trying to make a balance between the two. And finally, we're able to join anyone. So that means that we're actually kind of like anti-tech in the sense that everybody on this end of the diagram does not need the app. I can call anyone in this room, or you can call me. You don't need the app. And when we respond, I can read what you say. This kind of solution, we also do Skype, in the sense that we do video. And we're able to chat through the video and subtitle. And there's an interpreter who signs for us. So it's a three-way mechanism. And it's really simple to install in the sense that we install in 2 lines of code. Any person can put it on their website. From their website, this button calls our server. Our server solicits the necessary translation or transcription and calls back the number you're trying to reach. So we install it for call centers, for insurance, for banks, and so on and so forth. And these customers really are relieved that there's nothing more complex than just installing 2 lines of code on their website to make their call center accessible. And as it turns out, in France, it's law and air. It's law and air for companies to be accessible by October 2018. So it's a huge business opportunity for us, and we try to make it as painless as possible for our customers. There's also a lot of opportunity there, but we're going to do a little bit of a dive into how we actually got there. And there's a bit of history between this service. So what I'm trying to show right here is, this is actually the very first example I found of my prototype that you can see here. But actually in 1907, people were talking about silent films. There was no sound. So basically all of you were like deaf, basically, and we were watching a movie and there was no sound. And so they had to be very creative in showing a conversation on screen when 2 people were calling each other. That's very inspiring for me. And there's actually, we can go even farther back to 140 years ago. The gentleman right here, he was one of the first inventors of the telephone. And actually, he was working on phonetics because his wife was deaf and his mother was deaf. And when you think about it, the telephone is basically nothing more than a long-distance hearing aid. It amplifies the sound across the room, so I can hear it right here. And so the irony of the story is the telephone actually became a barrier for deaf people. But a lot of research was done around how to improve the lives of deaf people. And so people came up with like gloves that you can like touch. And so this became a major research subject in about 60, 70 years ago. AT&T, Bell Labs, and so on and so forth were working on this. And as it turns out, they were saying that the deaf people were probably the most important, the first beneficiaries of such advances in artificial intelligence, which they called cybernetics at the time. So basically, this is just to go back to the subject of how a lot of innovation we come up with is just actually a response to a constraint that you have. And a constraint that you have can be like you're cold and you're wearing clothes. So your clothes are actually artificial skin that you wear on you. And so you can go on and so forth like this. And so basically today, what we can do with our systems are very, very interesting. So today voice is really on a major breakthrough. You're hearing all the time about like how voice is changing the way you interact with your environment today, from your car to your home to your fridge and so on and so forth. And this is very, very interesting. Well, actually, it turns out that Telecom still rule the game when it comes to voice. Voice data goes through networks every single day to the tune of billions of minutes a day. That is the single largest source of data for voice that you can find today. It's just mind-boggling. But it's the fact also that most of the data is not very exploitable. There was a conference at the last data driven by Mirwandeba from Huawei. He was saying a lot of the data is flawed in telecoms. Why is it flawed? Because it's not the same when it goes through the telecom network than when it goes through your microphone directly into your smartphone. It's not the same bandwidth and so on and so forth. So there's a big, big challenge going on right here. Huge challenge. We're trying to make artificial intelligence in telecommunications through voice. And so the challenges are slow bandwidth in telecoms. There's a lot of frequency loss. High frequencies are lost, which high frequencies are a very major component of your voice. There's low frequency loss as well. Sampling rates. Sampling rates basically just kill data because basically the information is delivered in different chunks. So that's what we call signal chunking. But it's also when you travel, you go through different antennas and so on and so forth. These are challenges that are being addressed today by telecom operators and carriers. There's a lot of respect for the work they do, and it's underappreciated. But you see it every day when you move around, and you still got streaming data. And of course, there's interference because there's a lot of calls that just you get parasites on the end of the line. That also kills the voice you're hearing. So the human mind is amazing because it still understands what people are trying to say. But the fact is you're asking them to repeat and you're straining to understand what they're saying, and there's a lot of interference on the line. There's also the problem of transcoding. You need to get the right signal, the same signal across all spectrums. If you're going through one type of code that gets delivered through the network and trying to transcode to be processed by your artificial intelligence systems using another line of code, that disrupts the quality of the signal you're getting. That makes it very difficult to actually get the same quality throughout all the networks. And also there's latency, which is something you can't afford to have when you're trying to deal with real-time streaming information. What we're trying to do at RogerVoice, we're trying to make the user experience more comfortable using the information that we have at our hand. One such example is, for example, we're telling deaf people that the line is not working well, that there's interference, or that the signal is weak. You guys can tell that because you can hear that there's a problem on the line. We can't, so we just assume that the app doesn't work. The app is doing fine. It's just the line itself is having difficulties. So we're using artificial intelligence to help our users understand what's going on. So basically, the sentence says that what we're trying to solve here in voice recognition is we're dealing with large vocabulary continuous speech recognition. Apologize for the mix-up on the PDF. And what that means is most of the voice-based recognition that you deal with today is based on speech recognition. When you talk to Siri, you make requests. You're basically uttering commands. You're not having a conversation with the phone. You can have a conversation with Siri if you would like to, but that's not the point. The point is you're making a request. Please send a text to so-and-so. Voice recognition is a different subject. Voice recognition is more than just uttering a phrase and having it be recognized. We're talking here about human voice. A lot of human communication is unsaid or is in the inflection of what you've just said. So there's verbal cues and then there's non-verbal cues. There's things you say that are For example, if I ask my mother, how was your weekend? She's like, oh, my weekend was fine. I'm not really sure if that is good or bad. She could be like, oh, my weekend is fine. Or, oh, my weekend is fine. And that, for me, is a major loss in understanding what's going on. Tact is not sufficient to really understand the conversation. And if I'm doing this for deaf people, trust me, there's implications for a lot of major actors in the industry. So we're talking about like sentiment analysis. People talk about sentiment analysis all the time. Most of it is text-based. And even those who have tried to use emotion in sentiment analysis have not really gotten there yet. It's easy to fall. It's very hard to work on. So most of sentiment analysis today is flawed. If you call up your customer sales representatives, if you call up your customer sales for some company and say, oh, great job, guys. You know what? Great. That's obviously very, very negative. But sentiment analysis-based systems will say it's a great conversation with the customer. So we're trying to do emotion recognition, and that is a field of research we're working on right now. Make sure that deaf people understand fully what's going on in the conversation. If you're interviewing for a job and the person down the line says, look, it's quite interesting, we'll call you back. I'm not sure that's very positive, but for me, if I'm just reading this, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. So it's unfair for me. So we're trying to solve this. So basically what I'm seeing here is we're trying to analyze the level of excitement in a person's voice. But excitement can mean many things. You can be angry excited, or you can be passionate excited, or happy excited. And so we're trying to go further and further into these levels. And it's quite fascinating, and it's very, very challenging. There are very, very little advanced solutions out there that do this, so we're trying to do it ourselves. And there's also issues like voice detection. For example, if I'm having a conference call, there's several people talking in, and there's Dan, and there's Michael, and there's Sarah. Most of you are able to pick up right away, oh, this is Sarah talking, and this is Dan. I can't do this. So I'm seeing a mixture of different voices being transcribed by my phone. So a lot of you dream about having like, an app that does instant meeting minutes. Dream on, because it's really hard to kind of sift through who said what in the conversation. There's a lot of challenges left there. We're trying to resolve these challenges. And I'm sure there's many applications besides the need for deaf people. I'm sure you would love to have meeting minutes clearly drafted up and by knowing who said what. I'm trying to work on this. And finally, there's a subject that has recently caught my attention, and I'm working on with right now. I sort of had my Gary Kasparov moment last year, seeing this video by DeepMind research, and it shows someone talking, and there's a box around his lips, and it's recognizing what he's saying when he's talking, just using lip reading. So I'm a very good lip reader. I can probably understand a conversation with you if I turn off my hearing aids and I just follow what you're saying. I'm pretty good at this. I've been doing this for over 35 years. The fact that a machine is purposely trying to do this, and even better than me, has left me floored, absolutely floored. You cannot imagine the shock wave that this had gone through in the community around deaf and hard of hearing people. And this is very interesting because with this, we're combining with speech recognition. French is actually much easier to lip read than American English, because American English is very guttural. So you articulate less. French people articulate more, albeit faster. On the other hand, French is harder to understand using speech recognition. English has more phonemes and it's easier to understand using speech recognition. So there's flaws in both systems, and we're trying to combine the two to increase the system. So using our app's video conversation, there's subtitles on our app, and we're trying to make it so that lip reading is improved using both speech recognition and combining the two. And there's a lot of people that tell me, can you subtitle TV? That's very difficult because there's a lot of people talking at the same time, and there's like music and people interrupting. It's not something that is possible today. It's very, very difficult. Unless somebody's talking straight in front of the TV, has a mic right here. But using lip reading, if there's 3 people talking at the same time, that's fine. We're going to focus on each person's lips while they're talking and try to figure out. So there's many, many interesting applications. And that can improve everybody's overall level of information that they get. Most of the subtitles on TV in America are not used by deaf people. They're used by people who are learning the language, or they're used by people who are up late while their wife is sleeping and they're trying to watch TV and they turn it off, they put it on mute and they have the subtitles. There's a lot of interesting uses of subtitles on TV, and not just for deaf people. But the ones that are most frustrated by it are deaf people. And so that goes. There's also interesting application for translation. I'm sure you've all heard of Microsoft Skype Translate that came out a few years ago. It's very, very challenging to Skype Translate. It's very, very difficult. Why? Because we're trying to combine 3 things at once. You're doing voice transcription from speech to text. You're doing translation from text, one language to another language. And then you're doing voice synthesis. Trying to combine all 3 together is just a lot of, it's like eating a mega burger. Just very difficult to do. RogerVoice's ambition is much lower. We're trying just to transcribe for deaf people. Or we're trying to do voice synthesis. These are each separate things. And it's quite difficult as it is already. Trying to combine all 3 is very difficult. So a lot of people have asked us if you can do it. Yes, it's quite possible. The outcome is still very difficult to achieve. So we're doing proof of concept at the moment with some companies, trying to research in stealth mode to see where it goes. But the fact that we combine all these insights from all these different subjects that we're working on right now, trying to combine these 3. So basically, why we set out to achieve a lot of results is that we're kind of like thinking outside the box. Basically because we live outside the box every single day. We have these frustrations every single day. And those insights are delivering different means of achieving the results that I see, like what Microsoft and Google are doing, just incredible. And I see niche applications for it that give a lot of results in a different areas. So hopefully, deaf people are still set out to challenge and make a difference in telecommunications, I hope.
Olivier. Okay, I think there was also your CTO is here. Sébastien? Bastien? If you want to come on stage also to help on the questions. So for the questions, what we'll do is you ask me the questions. So as you understand, Olivier is deaf. So then I'm going to give him the question so he can read on my lips or listen to me, and we'll see if I speak well English, I don't know, or whatever. So I will try to repeat. Any question from the audience? Olivier. So make it simple so I can rephrase it, please.
Hello. You have shown impressive recognition of language. Do you know if it's also possible to recognize the signing language that deaf people are used to use for communicate?
Did you understand, Olivier? It's regarding the sign language for deaf people, and he wants to know if you have some solution for that also, not only for voice.
Very good question. I see year after year students at universities trying to solve this challenge to make sign language understandable by machines. This is still quite far in the future. basically because sign language is very rich, very complex. It's not just a movement of the hand, it's also a bodily expression and a facial expression. It's so much more complex than, you know, swiping using Microsoft Connect or having like armbands that understand your muscle movements. Sign language is just a very complex language. And so it's still quite far in the future for that kind of solution right now. But I would love to find a way, just like RogerVoice today, bridging communication between hearing people and deaf people using transcription. I would like to find a solution to that one day. And there are people working on it, and I hope they find that too. Most of the outcomes of those research today are used for example, remote controlling for machines, for a lot of work involving dangerous products that you don't want to handle too close. But there's very interesting applications for hand detection and movement controlling at a distance. For sign language, it's still far ahead in the future.
Any other question? Alex, there is one over there.
Thank you for the speech. I have a question. What do you think about podcast? Do you want to use this technology for podcast? For example, if I want to listen the podcast, I need to listen all the podcasts, and after that, I can say if the content is great for me or is not great for me. Can you do this recognition for the podcast and try to do like kind of sum up of the podcast? Is it possible to do that?
Did you understand? Okay, the question is on podcasts. Podcast, you understand podcast? Yeah, and so he wants to know if they can use your technology to summarize, understand the podcast, and maybe do a summary at the end of the podcast of the content. I can read it after, so translate the content of the podcast into something which is written.
That's a good question. So yes, you can use speech recognition for transcribing podcasts, and I'm sure that the quality of the audio is much better in a podcast because people are talking directly into a mic. We don't do that right now. We're still focused on our telecommunication systems for phone calls. There's a huge challenge in that many telecommunication companies don't have a solution today that's easily accessible for all the customers who are deaf and hard of hearing. So we're here to help telecommunication companies provide a readily available solution. For podcasts, you can indeed use voice recognition systems out there. I would like to see what that gives. I don't know yet. I haven't tried it. But thank you for the idea.
Good. Okay, last question. Okay, maybe I have one question. Yeah. So you said you're an operator, a telecom operator. So do you operate in all countries? Can we find? I mean, we can find your solution on the App Store, but then it can work everywhere. Or how does that work? If I'm in the States, I can use it. If I'm in India, I can use it. Can you explain?
Yeah. So basically, you can travel anywhere you want. Yes, that was one of the first concepts we insist on because deaf people are not just deaf in one country, they're everywhere. So yes, you can travel with the app, and you can change the language settings in the app. So it does English, Spanish, French, and so on and so forth. There's a degree of difference in speech recognition depending on the languages. Most of the major spoken languages in the world work really well. The less speakers you have of a certain given language, the less accurate the transcriptions will tend to be. But yes, you can travel with it. I have users in Mexico, I have users in South Africa. I have users in Japan, and they're all satisfied with the app. And so one of the major challenges we made was to make it available for everybody in the world, because deaf people live everywhere in the world. There's over 70 million deaf people in the world that just cannot use the phone. I'm not even talking about hard of hearing people. Basically the app is just download it, compose a number, call, and you have a transcript. It's that easy. Just do it out of the box. And today, one of the challenges we want to solve going forward is making sure that telecom operators in these different countries really have a solution for the customers, that they actually propose a solution that we're able to work with them. So hopefully very soon in the future.
Okay, Olivier, thanks again. Great project. Congratulations. Okay, thank you.